Hello everyone, Steve here, back again with another tabletop baseball video. I have undertaken a fairly ambitious project here, taking a look at another vintage baseball game called the World's Greatest Baseball Game. I've entitled this video First Look because I think this game is sophisticated enough that I won't be able to cover it in its entirety in just one video. That said, this is probably going to be one and done. You can see the logo of the of the game on the upper right-hand corner of the screen. They had a similar logo, by the way, for a hockey game they had, the World's Greatest Hockey Game. I know nothing about that, however. So I have a quote here from their brochure, which says, "For the fan who wants the maximum amount of realism." And I think you will see there was some intentionality about the design, and that permeates how the game is played, how it was designed. And with that, I think we're going to jump into how the game works, and first a little background. So there really isn't a lot of information in the public domain about this game. I've captured the Board Game Geek screen up here. There's really not much information there other than a few images of the game components, which we'll take a look at. As I understand it, this game was introduced to the public around 1977. Could have been earlier, I don't know. But this was after many years of development. I don't know who the designer was. The rule book has a copyright on it from somebody called JWW Corp. From Western Springs, Illinois. I believe this game was active at least until the early 80s. A friend of mine has I think 3 seasons worth of this game. He's been very helpful in providing me scans of components, which we'll look at, and explaining some of the gameplay to me. He's the one that actually mentioned the game to me when I met him in person, and he's actually a fan of the game, so that's been very helpful. The 1977 rule book breaks the game down into 7 levels of play. I think the reality is you can mix and match a bunch of the different rules, and so there's probably a myriad of different aspects to the game depending on how you mix and match. And I think you can see it at the bottom of the screen here, but I did find someone did a 1961 homebrew set for this game, and it's available on Tabletop Sports. I will say there's a couple issues, and one is there seem to be some, for some teams, there seem to be some pitcher cards missing, and for some teams, there seem to be some hitter cards missing. And then it looks like the rule book, which might have been 1981, somebody, instead of scanning it, put it through optical character recognition, and it just did not convert well. I've spent a few hours trying to clean up the document. Whether I'll finish that or not, I don't know. But it's been a little bit of a tedious exercise, although it has helped make me more familiar with the rules. As usual, I provide some resources or some links in the description to the video. I also make available the PowerPoint for all my videos. This could be a long video. Feel free to speed up the replay. That's what the gear sign is up at the top of the screen. I'm also going to suggest at times you pause the video, but I'm going to try to be as thorough as possible because there really isn't much out there on this game. There's a link to a useful forum thread on the Delphi forum. I mentioned Board Game Geek, and then if you want some better pictures of the components, there's a link to an auction site where this game had been for sale at some point. Please comment if you know anything about this game, especially if I got anything wrong in this video. And like and subscribe to the channel if you want, but really the comments are important. So this is a couple excerpts from the game brochure. This is where you might want to pause the video and take a quick read on this. The main point here is 2 points. One is, as I said, they were intentional about how they designed this game, and they actually have an aversion to just having the result occurring after a single roll of the dice, or maybe 2 rolls of the dice. They call that dull or boring, and so they design a completely different game. And in their mind, it created excitement and realism. And they say the game could probably be played in 45 minutes to an hour. I suspect that's true, and especially if you got good at the game, it might not be that cumbersome or burdensome to actually play a game, but it's not a 20-minute game. The second thing is he talks about having worked for 18 years on the game, and as the best information I have is this guy, whoever he is, designed the game to play with his son or his sons, I don't know. And so that's why he uses the word we when describing the game. And if the game came out in 1977 and he worked on it in 18 years, that means he started around the year I was born, in the early 60s, to make this game, which is kind of amazing. They did a lot of testing over the years, and then he makes some interesting reference to the fact that there's some electronic equipment that became available, so they were able to produce a full set of teams in a reasonable amount of time. I don't know what this equipment might be, other than possibly spreadsheets, which I think I saw my first spreadsheet in early 1982 when I was a senior in college. It is interesting. I saw one set of cards that looked like it was printed on a dot matrix printer. So maybe that coincides with the comment here. Let's go ahead and move on. Not the greatest picture, but you get an idea of the components. We'll talk about the cards in a minute. The batter cards, I believe, at least in this version, the batter cards are yellow. There are random number cards or fast action cards, which we're going to talk about in a second. I think they were light green, and I think the pitcher cards were in this version, the pitcher cards are yellow, and the batter cards are green, and the random number cards are light green. And you see a map of the field and some markers, and I'll try to talk a little bit about that later. They would provide in a booklet form some additional players, and looks like a score sheet and some blank cards. I guess if you wanted to make your own, you could. I don't know that they provided the formulas. I wish they had, but there you have it. So I've thought about what's the best way to describe this game and how it works. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show these table of contents from the rule book. I'm going to talk about the random number cards. I'm going to talk about the pitcher and batter cards. And then I'm taking a different approach, and I'm going to show a flowchart. And maybe between the combination of all those things, you'll see what the game is all about and how the flow works. So level 1 and 2 here is what I'm calling the basic game, and that's mostly what I'm going to describe. So here's a scan of 2 random number cards. I think we would call them fast action cards these days. The main aspect of these cards are the two large numbers at the top, or well, one large number at the top of each of the cards. And the way these two cards are flipped, the two large numbers are 0 and 6. So you read that as 06 or 6. And so there's 100 possibilities, and you read 00 as 100. And, so it goes from 01 to 00, which is 100. And that drives the bulk of the game, I guess I would say. You do see some asterisks on some of these large numbers. And if you flip up two cards to start the plate appearance, and both of the big numbers have an asterisk on them, that's your, your alert to go to the rare play chart and resolve the play that way. If I were playing this game, I probably would use two 10-sided dice, as you see on the side here, for the large numbers, and then find some other way to trigger the rare plays. It just seems like a lot of fast action card flipping to get started and to work your way through the game. That's just me. I do that with every game, though. I do that with payoff pitch. I do that with statispro, what have you. There's also what I call, or they call, the little number on each of the cards, and that is used for certain chart lookups and other result resolution. And in addition to the little number, which they go from 1 to 40, there's also an indicator of R and L. And so this game at the higher levels is a lot about fielder positioning. And this is helpful to tell you where the ball was hit. So if it was hit to left field, for example, I think the R really means it was hit to the right of the left fielder. I think that's what that means. Anyway, there were 200, apparently there were 200 physical cards in the deck, but you can see they have numbers at the top and the bottom. So really what you have is 400 cards, which I think is good. And obviously when you shuffle, you would not only shuffle the cards, but you would also reorient the direction of some of the cards as well. Okay, a later version of these random number cards had all the stuff that we just talked about, and you can see only one of these big numbers has an asterisk on it, although it's still 06 coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, I don't know. But what they did is they also moved a lot of the fielder positioning information to the card, and I think it depends on I believe whether it's a left-hand batter or right-hand batter on either side of the card there, and the numbers refer to fielding positions. So like the 8 in the outfield column is the center fielder. The 4 in the infielder column is the second baseman. And we'll discuss what the A through F means as well. But I think this was probably a great improvement, because before that, the fielding position actually had to be looked up on a chart. And in fact, this is what one of the fielding locator charts looks like. And so they had a chart for a left-handed pitcher and a chart for a right-hand pitcher. And within those charts, they had a column for the left-hand batter, and they had a column for the right-hand batter. They had rows for the power rating of the batter, and then they had individual columns depending on where the ball was hit and what type of hit that it was. And from all this, you would determine, where the ball went So on the upper left corner here, if a person was a power A, which is not very powerful, left-hand batter against left-hand pitcher, 1 to 8 is a ball hit to the left fielder, 9 to 16 is left center, etc., etc., etc. Okay, the game engine, the core of the game. This game uses an approach where you have ranges of outcomes on the batter card, but then there are also plus or minus modifiers from the pitcher card. And this game engine isn't completely unique. I've done videos about Big League Manager, which has a lot of similarities, I would say, to the engine for the world's greatest baseball game. I did a video on Pennant Drive, which has some of these features. Over on the right, Brian Hefferkamp is working on something called AIB Baseball. I will, on the last slide of this presentation, I will explain what that is, but you can check it out. It's not as, I would say, complicated as the world's greatest baseball game, and should be a nice, smooth playing game, but it uses a similar concept. Extra innings, in some respects, uses this concept, and I'd say even the other modern game, 80s baseball, does to a certain extent. So let's start with the batter card. This is a Willie Stargell card from the early 80s. And I'm going to point out a few things about the card. I'll try not to focus too much on the fact that they left the H off of Pittsburgh, but maybe they are a student of history and remember that in the early 1900s there was no H in Pittsburgh. Anyway, we're not going to talk a lot about it, but they do have fielding ratings, which are more or less a range rating, an error rating, and an arm rating if applicable. I mentioned the power rating. The power rating essentially is used to determine where the ball is hit. And if there's an oversimplification, it would probably say that the power hitters are more likely to pull the ball. I think that was the premise of the game, but otherwise the power rating doesn't have a lot of impact on the results. They range from A to F, and Willie Stargell being a power hitter, he's an F. Sometimes they have two letters, like if it was AB, that would kind of be a split rating, so they would have one power rating against the same side pitcher and a different power rating against opposite side pitcher. Step one of the game is you pick two random numbers, as we said, from 1 to 100, and then you see a walk range, a strikeout range, and a hit range. And so if the random number falls within that range, then you act accordingly. If it doesn't fall within those ranges, then you'll go to the very bottom of this section and deal with the potential out. But if it's a hit, you will pick two more random numbers and determine the type of hit. And that's the entirety of the hit range there. And you can see Stargell was not necessarily a speedster, so he only had one triple, but he had a lot of home runs and doubles, and so those ranges are reasonably big. At the bottom, you see that the different types of outs that might occur other than strikeouts. And so there are different types of fly balls and ground balls. The other thing I guess I was going to mention is and you'll see this on the next page, is for these ranges, they'll start at a different starting point depending on the card. And so some people might like that feature, some people might not like that feature, but I guess we'll see that best on the next page where I'm going to compare two cards. So look at the walk rating. Stargell's walk range ranges from 45 to 53. It starts on 45. Omar Marino's walk range actually starts at 99, goes to 100, and then goes all the way back forward to 6. Marino has 8 walk chances, 99, 100. That's 2 plus 6 more is 8. And that's more or less 8% of his plate appearances. He has 15 strikeout chances. That's 15%. Strikeout at that time, that was probably pretty average, maybe a little high. He has no explicit home run chances on his card. If you go to the left and you see Stargell, he has the same, he has 9 walk chances. He has 22 strikeout chances because he struck out a lot, and he has 21 explicit home run chances. If you look at the very bottom of these cards, the other way you can get a home run is through deep fly chances. And there are certain games that have this. It's interesting that a game this old had it. And you see Stargell has 10 deep fly chances, and Marino only has 4. And so if Marino's going to hit a home run, it's going to be from these deep fly chances. At the very top of these cards, you can see as well, there's a bunting rating. Negative is not good and positive is good. And so Stargell probably never bunted. In fact, I just looked. He bunted 10 times his whole career, and all those times were in the first half of his career. So he wasn't bunting in the early 80s. He probably lost a few steps as well. I'm guessing this card is somewhere around 1981, but I don't know for sure. And Stargell has the F power. Marino has the AB power, and Marino was a speedster. So that's why they nicknamed him the Antelope, and his speed rating is quite high at 26. And we'll see how that speed rating comes into play. It's quite integral to the game, actually, and I'll touch on that later. And Marino, no home runs, but he had a lot of triples. So it looks like he has 11 triple chances on his card here. Okay, pitcher cards. So we'll get this out of the way first, but the pitcher cards had up to three different endurance ratings on them. As a starter, as a, long reliever, and as a short reliever. I'll explain how those work later. Pitcher cards had 3 columns. On the left, it's a column if the pitcher is fatigued or tired. The middle column of numbers is called normal, which is essentially the rating of the pitcher with the bases empty. And then there's a pressure column, which is ratings with men on base. And if you saw my ballpark baseball video, it incorporated, in the later years, this concept of ratings with bases empty and men on base. It doesn't have that for the batters, but it does have it for the pitchers. In general, these cards will have worse ratings in the pressure situation and better ratings in the normal situation. But the documentation indicates that that's not always true. In this card, it is true all the way up and down. So what do these ratings mean? So the first row is the walk range adjustment. So you'll add, in this case, anywhere from 1 to 4 to the end of the walk range of the batter when Mike Krukow is pitching. In terms of the hit range, you could potentially subtract 1 under normal conditions, or under tired conditions, you might add 5 to the hit range. So the way to think about these numbers is each number is essentially a percent because of the 1 to 100 system. And so when Krukow is tired, he adds 50 basis points, or I'm sorry, 50 batting average points, if you will, to the hit range. Whereas under normal bases empty situation, he subtracts 10 points from the batter's batting average range, or hit range, more technically. So there is an adjustment for the hit range. There's also an adjustment for the strikeout range. There also is a home run adjustment. And so we saw in the batter card that there was a home run range and for the explicit home runs, and this will either generally add or subtract to the home run range, depending on the pitcher's likelihood to give up home runs relative to the league average, I'm assuming. And then likewise, there's a similar adjustment that comes into play when there's a deep fly, where you will adjust the random number for that. And for whatever reason, these aren't entirely symmetrical, I guess, these ratings. I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but I've done some work as to why I think that is, but that's beyond the scope of this video. We'll see this in a minute, but if there is a walk, it's really a possible walk because it could become a hit batsman, a wild pitch, a balk, or a passed ball. And that's what you use the ranges at the bottom of the page for. Those ranges go from 1 to 40. Potentially those numbers could go to 1 to 40, and that's where you use the little number on the random number card. The last thing I wanted to mention, and this will come up at the end, is that it's not entirely clear what year these cards are based on. They didn't put a year on the card. They did put a team on the card. And Mike Krukow pitched for the Phillies 1 year, 1982. I think similar to long ball, this game tried to construct the rosters based on the coming year. And so it's very possible this is the card that was issued in 1982, but based potentially on his 1981 stats with the Cubs. We'll talk about this at the end. Okay, I took a shot at describing what I just said in terms of a flowchart. And there's a lot here. Bear with me. In the left middle, as I said, you start with the batter card. I'm going to use the term roll here to refer to the random number generation because I like to think of it in terms of dice rolls. So your first roll, you check the batter card, you check the hit range, you check the walk range, you check the strikeout range first. And so if it's a strikeout, then he struck out. If it's a hit, you will roll again, and based on the batter card, you will determine whether it's a single, double, triple, or home run. Again, the home run is subject, or home run range is subject to an adjustment based on the pitcher card. And I think if it's not a home run, it becomes a single. But don't quote me exactly on that. But a lot of games do that, and I think that's what this one does. I think it's a matter of practicality because the single ranges everybody will have a singles range, and it'll usually be pretty big. So that's what you do if it's a hit. We already talked about strikeout. If it's a walk, or if it's in the walk range, you got to roll again, and you check the bottom of the pitcher card, and most of the time it's a walk, but once in a while it's a hits batsman or one of these other situations that I show here. If it's not a strikeout, hit, or walk, then it's a potential out. And I'm going to go to the bottom. If it's in the deep fly range, then you have to roll again. And the default is that if the new random number is anywhere from 75 to 100 or 00, then it's a home run. So that's 26% chance of hitting a home run in the default level. Now that could be higher or lower depending on the pitcher card adjustment, which I didn't put on here. I was going to put a notation that the pitcher, again, can adjust the deep fly range. Later we'll talk about it could be affected by the ballpark as well. So if it's a home run at that point, it's a home run. But if it's then just an out or a potential out, you have to roll again. So this would be the third roll. And there's a 10% chance in the basic game that it could be a triple, a 1% chance that it could be an error, and an 89% chance that it would be caught. Okay, now let's go to the out box. I think it's beige color on the screen. So if it's not a hit, it's not a strikeout, it's not a walk, and it's not a deep fly, then what you do is you figure out, based again on the same roll. It's really roll 2C. No, I'm sorry. It's the second roll basically, and what you do is you look at the bottom of the batter card, and that's where you determine what type of ball in play that it was. Some type of fly ball, some type of ground ball, or maybe a kind of a foul ball. Anyway, once you know what type of ball it was hit, you need to roll again. And I didn't put the next roll on here, I guess, but you need to roll again to determine whether the ball was fielded, whether the ball turned out to be an explicit single, or whether the player knocked it down and wasn't able to successfully field it, which is also a single, or 1% of the time in the basic game, it could be an error. Okay, I know there's a lot there. Once it's fielded, you're not done. Because then you need to determine whether it was, like in the case of a ground ball, whether it was successfully thrown to first for an out. This section of the game is a little complicated. I haven't done the best job of explaining it, and I apologize. But this is where the advanced levels of the game come in, and what happens is these success rates for singles, for example, on a ground ball, heavily depend on the running speed of the runner. So sometimes the runner will beat the throw, and a faster runner like Marino will beat the throw more often than a slower runner like Stargell. In addition, customized error ratings can come into play and affect the percentage likelihood of an error, and the fielding ratings can come into play as well. Again, I did not explain this the best, but hopefully you've got a general feel for the flow. Maybe this next slide will help, maybe it won't. So if there's a ground out, and this is a direct excerpt from the rule book, but if, let's say, there's two types of ground balls, there's slow rollers and regular grounders. And if you have a slow roller, as I said, there's a 1% chance in the basic game that it will be an error. There's a 6% inherent chance, all other things being equal, that it will be a single. In other words, no play is made on the slow roller. You can kind of envision that. And then there's a 93% chance that the ball is fielded. Now, slightly different for a regular grounder. Again, there's the 1% error chance. There's a 4% chance in the basic game that it will just be a single. And then there's a 2% chance that there will be no play made. And together those are actually the same as the 6%. There's a slight nuance with the grounders as to why it makes a difference if the ball got through as a single versus no play, but that might be beyond the scope. If you're really interested, you can actually read this text on the screen, pause the video, and I think you'll get a better feel for what happens. The second part of this at the bottom talks about what happens. Once the ball is fielded, the batter still needs to be thrown out, and so you do turn over two more cards, and then you look up on the result chart as to what to do. And in this case, an out at first base, there's still a 5% chance that the throw will not occur correctly and the batter's safe. This is different from an error. Again, you can read this. I've excerpted from the brochure, I think it is, and here you see the philosophy that each element of the game requires an action to resolve it. So even in the case of a single that goes through to the outfield, you have to roll again to see if the outfielder fielded it correctly. And that's the nature of the game. And some people will like that, and some people will not. Deep fly. So, as I said, it's not a strikeout, it's not a hit, it's not a potential walk, and you determine what type of out it is, or potential out. One of those options is deep fly. We explained how that worked. So the first roll you do when it's a deep fly is to see if it's a home run or not. As I think I alluded, you have to apply the pitcher's deep fly plus or minus adjustment to the random number or the dice roll before checking to see if the deep fly is a home run. If it's not a home run, then you get another 2-digit random number. And as I said, there is a varying chance of an error, a hit, or the ball is caught. But in the advanced section, the hit could either be a triple if the runner's speed is 0 or positive, but only a double if his speed is negative. So there's where running speed can come into play. Lastly, on the deep flies, not only is there a plus or minus adjustment for the pitcher's deep fly rating, but there is also potential for ballpark effects. And what I'm showing on the right here is the 1961 homebrew example. And so depending whether the ball was hit to the left field, left center, center field, right center, or right field, it will tell you what the home run range is. So this is Forbes Field. If we look at right field, it's a relatively short right field. So instead of the home run range going from 75 to 100, it's going from 67 to 100. So quite a significant percentage increase in the home run possibility, as opposed to center. And just in center field, or just right of center field, the deepest part of the park is 457 feet. And so you'll see that the home run range for deep fly starts at 89. And so there's a significant reduction in the number of home runs that will occur if a deep fly is hit to center field. However, that means that there could be a better chance of a double or a triple, and I think that happened a lot in Forbes Field. So that's the more advanced version of what happens on a deep fly. In the actual game, this is what the ballpark chart looked like. And so there's a column with a heading of HR. That's an adjustment to the home run rating, not the deep fly rating, but the home run rating, in addition to the pitcher's adjustment to the home run range adjustment. And so you can see Atlanta, the launching pad, and maybe Wrigley Field. In general, the explicit home run chances are going to be higher because they have +2 on the home run rating, over and above whatever adjustment the pitcher makes. So there you have that, but you have other places like Kansas City where it was -2. Then in terms of the deep fly adjustments, these are similar to what I just showed on the prior slide, but here you have in the upper left-hand corner, you have Boston with the green monster, and so the home run range is lower. That 61 is low compared to the 75 standard. There's another rule they have that turn hits off the walls into doubles and stuff. But anyway, or singles, I don't know. But then you see Kansas City again must have had a deeper park because the home run ranges, especially in center and left center and right center, are in the high 80s. And then you have on the right here, you see Yankee Stadium down the right field line. It's only 62, which we kind of know to be true. So this was, pretty sophisticated way to affect the home runs. What I don't know is whether these home run effects were incorporated into the home run ranges on the batter card, or even the home run adjustments on the pitcher card. That would require some pretty sophisticated math, but it's entirely possible over the years that they made those adjustments. Okay, endurance fatigue. The approach that they have in this game is what I call a reduction approach, which is similar to statispro. As we said, there are 3 different ratings: starter, long relief, and short relief. And what happens is each time there's a hit, an unintentional walk, a hits batsman, a balk, a wild pitch, pass ball, error, or stolen base, you deduct 1 from that rating. You deduct 2 for each run charged to the pitcher. I think these 2 adjustments might be a little more punitive than some games do, but it is what it is. But then they have bonuses. So if the pitcher pitches a perfect inning, a 1-2-3 inning, you get to add 1 back to the factor. And if the next inning is another perfect inning, you add 2 instead of 1. So there is a way to kind of give a bonus to a pitcher who's kind of on a roll. The pitcher gets tired when the endurance factor reaches 0. and that's when you use the tired column on the pitcher card, which has a significant negative effect on his performance up and down the card. It's possible if you have a tired pitcher, you leave him in, and then he pitches a perfect inning, he's gets a +1, and so he's no longer 0 or negative. And at that point, he's no longer tired, and you use him as normal. So pretty sophisticated for its time. And again, kind of coincided, I think, with what statispro did and what some other games do in modern times. So let's move on. Level 3. This is primarily where they talk about the strategy plays. That would be bunting, stolen bases. You can read the list here, hit and run, and so on. Level 4 is kind of a catch-all for two major things. One is how you use your bullpen and whether you need to warm up the relief pitcher before he comes in, and some other tweaks. And then the second half here, the very advanced versions of this game incorporate the fielder's range rating. It incorporates where the fielders are positioned. So for a two-player game in particular, this would be a very advanced feature. There's probably some analogy to what ballpark baseball did in terms of fielder positioning, but this is actually more sophisticated. I don't know Sherco, the old Sherco game, but I think it's somewhat analogous to that game. Level 5. I was just talking about this, but you can bring the fielders in, or have them play deep. You can play a shift if you want. Yeah, there's a lot of nuance here related to fielder positioning and how you incorporate that into the game. But it basically influences the fielding ranges and determines the likelihood of a ball being fielded if it comes in the fielder's direction. And how you keep track of some of this, they did have a field here. You can see it. And so I think you would use markers to determine where you're going to place your fielders. And depending on their depth and the positioning left and right of their standard position, that helps you determine what adjustments to make to the various ranges that you're reading and get some results. And then there's also some stuff at the bottom here where they just provide reminders of how to adjust normal situations. Okay, I did mention fielder shifts, and this is where those lines, if you will, that were on the fielding chart on the previous slide, where those come in. There's some other stuff. This is where the ballpark dimensions come in that I already talked about, and special ballpark rules for things like the Green Monster. And then there's even another level 7, odds and ends. It talks about resting your pitchers and managing your rotations and making adjustments for night games and further adjustments on the normal and pressure situations. Weather, special events, which is I think the rare play charts, injuries, playing the infield in, which is or charging, if you will, equivalent to charging in some other games. And then they even talk about shuffling the random cards. So that's the world's greatest baseball game. Hopefully this has been a helpful introduction. I did the best I could to describe it. It is a complex game. But as I said at the beginning, the gamer can customize the rules to fit his or her needs. And I think at its simplest form, it can be fairly simple. I think to get accurate results, you do need to at least incorporate the runner's speed in the result determination. And they explicitly say if you don't do that, then you'll find out that the fast runners don't have a hit at a high enough average, and the slow runners will hit better than they should. So I have done a lot of analysis on this game. This is in addition to reading and rereading the rules over the last several weeks. Because I always ask myself the question, could I reverse engineer the world's greatest baseball game? And I think my answer is maybe. So there's some challenges. And one is not knowing what stats the original cards were based on. There's some indication, especially if you read the Delphi form, that instead of being based on the single season, it might have somehow incorporated career stats. I was analyzing one card, and I think that seems to be somewhat true. But if that's true, there's no way for me to benchmark my analysis and my formulas against the card because I have nothing good to compare to. A related question that always comes up with reverse engineering is, were the original cards accurate? However you determine accurate. And, sometimes they were, sometimes they weren't. By the creator's own admission, they evolved the formulas over time, which is completely understandable. I always remind myself and others that these people, for the most part, were dealing with pencil, paper, maybe a hand calculator, maybe baseball encyclopedia, maybe sporting news stats. Who knows what they had? For example, well, I'll say this in a minute. So, I give them credit, all these guys credit for what they came up with. I already talked about the speed ratings and some of the other ratings, and from my analysis, it's clearer how they were incorporated into the cards, but how well, I don't know. And then you have the question of the normal and pressure columns on the pitcher cards. I really doubt they had real data for this, and my indications so far are that they did not. But that split data now exists, so it would make sense to use that data if you were constructing cards today. All that said, it does create extra complexity in the calculations. And of course, then there's the kind of the rhetorical question, is there any demand for additional card sets? I know one person who would like to see additional card sets for this game. I know with ballpark baseball, I think there would be demand for additional card sets. But who knows for this game? I'll wrap up this slide just by saying I've done a lot of analysis of some player cards. I've developed formulas for how I think the game should work or how the cards should look. I don't know if I've captured it entirely, but I think I've captured it to a great extent. If anyone wants to see that analysis, you're going to have to tell me, and either we'll set up a Zoom call or I'll record another video. But at the moment, I don't think I'm going to record another video. Okay, I said at the beginning I was going to talk a little bit about Brian's AIB Baseball. It's currently in beta form. So you see here a pitcher card and a batter card. Just like the world's greatest baseball game, you have range adjustments. In this case, it's for home runs, wild pitches, hits batsmen, strikeouts, and walks. It's very much a sabermetric approach, the 3 true outcomes, if you will. And those range adjustments are applied to the batter card. And you see the main part of the batter card here. He uses 2d10, and the results go from 1 to 100. 1 is always a rare play check, 99 is always a hit batsman check, and 100 or 00 is always a wild pitch check. And then you have the rest of the result types here in the middle. So home run, double, triple, single, walk, strikeout, ground out, fly out, line out, pop out. This is the latest version of the card I see. I forget for sure how it was designed before, but to the extent that a home run range is reduced, it looks like it's going to expand the double range, which kind of makes sense. Some games adjust the singles, and some games adjust the doubles. Yeah, so that's the game. Check it out. He has on his YouTube channel, he has playthrough videos, and check it out. And then this is his website. This is not his only game. You see the link at the bottom. Feel free to check it out. He has people testing this game right now, and it's going through a few tweaks as we speak, and will be available sometime, hopefully in the near future. This has been a very long video. If you have watched all the way to the end, very, very good for you. I hope you appreciate this work. Again, comment if you have any feedback. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.